Yes, a good evening, candidates of 2020. This is teacher Peter Ekaja going to take you through the solutions to assessment 2. Now, for this case, we're specifically going to begin with the section A type questions. But before we do much, let's first make a simple review on our question paper. Now, when you look at question two, it says in the diagram below, a chord of length 20 centimeters is drawn to a circle of center O, where angle POQ equals to 120 degrees. But when you get back to the diagram, they indicated 9.5 centimeters instead of the 20 centimeters. Because remember, PQ is our chord in this case. So that was a typing error that we need to adjust. So please adjust on your question from 9.0 centimeters to 20 centimeters. We can now go back to the solutions for our section A type questions for today. So question 1 tells us to solve the inequality 11 out of 6 minus a half into x minus 4 less or equal to a third. Now, the first step we are going to go for in this case is to think about the LCM of 6, 2, and 3. And we all know that the LCM of 6, 2, and 3 is 6. And so because the LCM is 6, we are going to simply multiply through by 6. So that will give us that next step. So we have this term multiplied by 6, we have the whole of this term multiplied by 6, and we have this term also multiplied by 6. You make sure you multiply each of the terms by the LCM. Then if you reduce 6 and 6, you get 1. So it will be 1 times 11. Then 2 and 6 will give you 3. Then 3 and 6 will give you 2. And that takes us the next step, which is 11 minus 3 into x minus 4 less or equal to 2. Now, when you open up this bracket, you have to be so careful with the negative sign, because negative 3 by x should be giving you negative 3x, and negative 3 times negative 4 should be positive 12. And so that will give us our next step as that. Then from here, we simply make x the subject, or we solve for x. So we can first combine the 11 plus the 12, that gives us 23. And that can be moved to the right hand side such that you have 2 minus 23, and that gives you negative 21. Now, if you divide through by negative 3, remember, when you divide by a negative number, the sign has to change. So it means our value will be x greater or equal to 7. And that will be our solution. They also told us to represent our solution on a number line. So you're going to represent for me this on your number line. I will not be able to put it here, but make sure the circle you're drawing on 7 is shaded, simply because the greater than sign means even 7 is inclusive. And of course, the arrow will be pointing the right hand side direction. I mean, it will be pointing at the positive side from the point that we have, and that is 7. Let's move to question 2. Now, question 2, getting back to the question, we can look at the question first. Yes, so we said we have to adjust this to 10 centimeters. I mean to 20 centimeters, I beg your pardon in this case. Now, what we're going to do to make life easy is to simply bisect this angle into 2. And so that will give us 60 and 60. Then I will have a half of triangle OPQ. Now that half of the triangle will enable us to apply Pythagoras theorem. Then later on, we can get the area, because I think in our question here, if we look at it, they first talked about the shortest distance between the chord and the center. That will simply be this distance from this point to this point here. That can be got using the half triangle that we are going to extract from this triangle OPQ. Then the area of the triangle POQ will simply be thrice the area of the half triangle we are extracting out of this. So we can go back and look at the solution. So now we have our angle, which is 60 degrees after dividing the 120 degrees by 2. And here we divided the 20, which was the complete length of the chord, by 2. We got 10. And so we are representing the distance they want from the center, which was at this point, to this point. We are representing it as x. Now to get x, we are simply going to use SOHCAHTOA. And so we shall say tan 60 degrees is equals to the opposite out of the adjacent, and that gives us this step. From there, you simply cross multiply, then after you divide through by tan 60 on both sides. When you do so, you will be able to get 5.7735 centimeters to 4 decimal places. So it means if we come to the area now, the area of POQ is going to be thrice, I have a 2 here, thrice the area of this triangle. But remember, the area of this triangle is going to be a half times its base, which is 10, times the height, which is the value of x we obtained. Then you multiply by 2 simply because this is simply a half of our triangle PQO. And if you do so, you get 57.735 square centimeters. Let's move on to question 3. Question 3, yes. Question 3 says, in a class of 50 students, there are 30 boys and the rest are girls. Now, automatically, if there are 50 students and there are 30 boys, then we should be able to know that the girls will be 20. Given that the mean mark of the whole class in a test was 64 marks. Now, mean mark means the average mark for each student in a class is approximately 64 marks. And that for the boys was 60 marks. Find the mean mark for the girls. Now, remember they told us that the mean mark for the entire class was 64 marks. What does it mean? It means the total marks for the 50 students will be 50 times the mean mark, which is 64. And that gives us 3,200 marks. Then on top of that, we can now talk about the total marks for the 30 boys. Remember, they also gave you the average mark for the boys. And so we are getting the average, which was 60 for the boys, times the 30. And that gives you 1,800. Now, if you know the total marks for the whole class, and you also know the total marks for the boys, 30 boys, it means we can now tell the total marks for the 20 girls. That will simply be this marks for the whole class minus the marks for the boys. And that gives us 3,200 minus 1,800. And if you subtract that, you get 1,400. Now, if you want to get the mean mark for the girls, the mean mark for the girls will simply be the total marks for the girls divided by the number of girls. And that will be 1,400 divided by 20, giving you 70 marks. So that gives us question 3 solution. Let's move on to question 4. Question 4, if you go back and review, we can first look at the question again. Question 4 says, a regular polygon has 18 sides. Find the size of each exterior angle and hence determine the angle sum of interior angles of this polygon. Very interesting. Now remember, you already have the number of sides, but they want you to get the size of each exterior angle. So we shall first have to remember that by formula, each exterior angle is given by the formula 360 divided by n, where n is the number of sides. And this gives you 360 divided by 18, which was the number of sides given in the question. So it means our exterior angle is 20 degrees. Then getting back to part B, they say the interior angle sum, which is also given by the formula 180 into n minus 2. But remember, n is still the number of sides. And we know that the number of sides is 18. So when you substitute for 18 there, you shall have 180 into 18 minus 2, which is as good as 180 degrees multiplied by 16. And that gives us the interior angle sum as 2,880 degrees. We can now move on to question 5. Now, question 5 wanted us to evaluate 1 out of 27 power negative 2 out of 3 plus 81 power 3 out of 4. Now, what we're going to do here to make life easy is to simply take the reciprocal of this value here, and that will be 27 out of 1, which is the same as 27. But once you take the reciprocal, then the sign of the power has to change. Now that it is a negative, it now changes to a positive. Then we also look at 81. Now 81 can be expressed as a power of 3, and that is the same as 3 power 4. And so the next step is to also break down the 27 to give us 3 power 3. So now you have 3 power 3, power 2 out of 3. 3 power 4, power 3 out of 4. So this 4 can cancel with this 4. This 3 can also cancel with this 3. And so we remain with 3 squared plus 3 cubed. But remember they said evaluate. So you have to simplify this. Remember 3 squared is 9 and 3 cubed is 27. And when you add all these, it gives you 36 as the final answer. But if they had just said simplify, remaining here wouldn't be any of any problem. But now that they said evaluate, you have to go and actually get the value of 3 squared, connect together or add together with the value of 3 cubed. That is our question 5. Let's go to question 6. Question 6, they told us that set P, we can first go back to the question again. They said that if set P equals to all factors of 30 and set T equals to all triangle numbers, this should have been triangular numbers less than 20. Represent P and T on a Venn diagram and hence find number of P prime intersection T. Number of P prime intersection T. Let's go to the solution and look at that. Now, P all factors of 30. That means we shall have 1, 2, 3. We also have 5. We have 6. We have 10 itself. We have 15 and 30. Then all triangular numbers less than 20. Remember, 1 is a triangular number, 3 is a triangular number, 6 is a triangular number, 10 is a triangular number, and 15 is a triangular number. The next was supposed to be 21, but they said less than 20. So we shall stop at 15. So that will give us our first step in the solution. So we now have P as 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, 30. Then T as 1, 3, 6, 10, 15. Now we're now going to draw our Venn diagram. So our Venn diagram is going to be this. Now you realize that the elements which are shared are 1, 3, 6, 15, and 10. Then for P only, we have 2, 5, and 30. But when you go to the section of T only, we don't have any element. And they asked us for the number of P complement intersection T, meaning they wanted the number of T only. So there you will simply say number of T only is equals to 0, simply because we don't have any element that appears in set T. So that will be answering your. So now let's look at number 8. We can begin with the question. Sorry, it is question 7 and says a straight line passes through the points negative 3, 2, 0, 2 and 4n. Determine the value of n. Now, since these 3 points are on a straight line, we are going to simply take any 2 pairs and we get their gradients, and after getting the gradients we equate them, because since all of them lie on a straight line, if I connect this point to this point, the line that joins them will have the same gradient as me connecting this point to this point. So I'm going to get the gradient for these 2 points, and I also get the gradient using these 2 points, and I equate them. You know that the gradient is given by the formula y2, so it is now y2 minus y1, and this will be our y2, I mean our x2, and this will be x1. So that is why I have 2 minus 2 and divided by 0 minus negative 3. And that should be giving you the same gradient as when you use this point and this point. And if you use this point, it will be n minus 2, because n is y2 and 2 is y1. Then out of 4 minus 0. Then the next step to that will be a matter of simplification. So we have a 0 here out of 3, out of n equals to n minus 2 out of 4. Then remember, 0 out of 3 is as good as 0. So now when you cross multiply at this level, you will get n minus 2 equals to 0. And automatically that gives us the value of n as 2. So that is our question 8. I mean question 7, I beg your pardon there. We can move to question. Now question 8 says the surface area of two similar spheres are in the ratio of 4 to 9. Find the volume of the small sphere if the volume of the larger one is 135 cubic centimeters. Now remember, they have given the surface areas in this ratio. So it means this is going to be as good as the area scale factor. So we can look at the solution. So we have our area scale factor equals to 4 over 9. Now this clearly indicates that the first sphere is smaller than the second one. So it means the smaller one takes a ratio of 4 and the bigger one takes a ratio of 9. But remember, when you have the area scale factor, you can use it to get the linear scale factor. How are we going to get the linear scale factor? We are going to get it from this formula. That area scale factor is as good as linear scale factor but squared. So if you're to get the linear scale factor, it means you're going to take a square root on both sides. And so the linear scale factor will simply be the square root of 4 out of 9. And remember, power half is as good as the square root. And this gives us 2 out of 3. Because the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of 9 is 3. Then we can move on and look for the volume scale factor, simply because they asked for the volume. Now, volume scale factor is also as good as the linear scale factor but cubed, but you already have the linear scale factor. So it's a matter of substituting it, and you give it a power of 3. So 2 power 3 gives you 8, and 3 power 3 gives you 27. And now that that is the volume scale factor, we shall say that volume scale factor is equals to volume 1 out of volume 2. Now, volume 1 is going to be the smaller volume this time, simply because the area, the first area was also small. So volume 2 will be the volume of the bigger sphere. And so by substitution, they had given us the volume of the bigger sphere as 135, and we already had the volume scale factor. Then from here, we can simply cross, multiply, and look for the value of V1. So it means our V1 will be 40 cubic centimeters. That is our question 8. Let's look at question 9. Question 9 wanted us to find the value of y in this question concerning logarithms. What are we going to do? We are simply going to apply the rules of logarithms. Here you can see we are adding, and here we are subtracting. And remember, they are all logarithms to a common base, which is base 10. So it means for these two terms where we are adding, we shall simply multiply y cubed times 1 out of 16. Then we are subtracting log base 10 of 4, so it means we shall divide all the result we get from here by 4. If you do so, you will have such a step. Then that simplifies to, this now tells us that when you get y cubed out of 16 by 4, which is 64, it will be the same as this base that we have, power this number. It will be 10 power 0. And when you know, when you press your calculator, 10 power 0 is the same as 1. And so we shall cross multiply by having y cubed times y cubed equals to 64 times 1, and that is 64. Then because we have a cube, we simply take a cube root, and that gives us the value of y as 4. Question 10. Question 10 was telling us to convert this to base 10. So now we have 0.12 base 6 and we want to convert it to base 10. What do? You first award powers. For decimals, what is going to be on the left? Like for this case, we are going to award a power of 0 to 0. Then whatever is on the right hand side of the decimal, you award them negative powers. So 1 will take a power of negative 1 and 2 will take a power of negative 2. Then automatically we shall say 0 times 6 power 0 plus 1 times 6 power negative 1 plus 2 times 6 power negative 2. And that can simplify to 1 over 6 plus 2 out of 36. If you simplify this, you will come up with the LCM as 36. And if the LCM is 36, you get 36 divided by 6. That gives you 6 times 1, you get 6. 36 divided by 36, you get 1 times 2, you get 2. So when you add this, the final answer comes to it would be 8. It would be 8, yes, out of 36. But if you reduce by 4 by 4, it gives you 2 out of 9. So our answer to base 10 will be 2 out of 9. Now this brings us to the end of the section A type questions. Please watch out for the next section, and that will be section B. And remember to subscribe in case you have not, so that you're always updated whenever I upload new content. Otherwise, I wish you a happy preparation for your national examinations.